Hello, my name is Tyrese Benford, and in this presentation, I will be comparing Thea von Arber's Metropolis to Kurt Mazig's First Spaceship on Venus to see how they portray unchecked technology and utopia versus dystopia. So, as an introduction to the two films, Metropolis was released in 1927 and takes place in a futuristic city with a clear divide between the rich elite and the oppressed workers. The story follows Freder, an elite son who discovers the horrors faced by the poorer working class. There are those who preach activism, which is challenged by the elites, causing destruction and revolts through the mechanical usage, eventually leading to Freder acting as a mediator between the two societies. First Spaceship on Venus was released in 1960, and it follows an international crew's journey to Venus after receiving a weird message. When the crew reaches Venus, they see it's been destroyed and it's lifeless due to the usage of nuclear weapons they were planning to use on Earth. The film acts as a warning against the dangers of nuclear weapons and encourages cooperation. And although the films are 33 years apart, they both display clear themes of the dangers of advancement/technologies and a clear divide between utopian society and a suffering one. As for my thesis statement, it goes, although Metropolis 1927 and First Spaceship on Venus 1960 originate from different key eras in Germany's history, both films have strikingly similar mise-en-scène and thematic contents that portray the consequences of unchecked technology, the tension between dystopia and utopia, and the hope of collective progress. Okay, to get started, we're going to talk about the setting and the grandiose scale that we see here. Before anything, I'd like to touch on the low-key lighting present in both pictures, but very much here on the right in First Spaceship on Venus. So, to start, I wanted to bring up some similarities between the scenery and settings in the two films. In the still shot on the left, we see Metropolis. We see these towering skyscrapers, which are huge industrial buildings and underground machine rooms that dwarf humans. This is all in an attempt to emphasize the large role technology has in society and to show the societal hierarchy. Furthermore, by looking at the film on the right, First Spaceship on Venus, we get a glimpse into the Venetians' monumental ruins that just seem foreign, with oversized passageways, weird shapes, and like that of Metropolis, it reduces humans to a small figure in this engineered environment, all of which reinforce the grandeur and advanced technology, which I've circled here, an example on the right. They really make it obvious. I would like to point out, once again, the lighting. I think it does a good job of creating a dramatic and mysterious mood, which fits the scene and film quite well. And in reference to one of our readings done by PhD student Molly Harabin in a review, she mentioned in her review of Nosferatu, which she called a breath of fresh air, when she was describing Nosferatu in similar films from the Expressionist era, the scenery is nothing like anything that exists in real life. And I think both films here and the scenes and cinematography used are similar. So I thought that was a good quote. Okay, so next I would like to touch on the use of unchecked technology. So we have a small clip here from Metropolis. Okay. In Metropolis, technology is seen as both a wondrous and dangerous thing, needing human mediation. For example, here in the clip I just showed you, this is a robot version of Maria, Rotwang's humanoid robot to be in fact. It's inciting chaos, which almost ends up destroying the entire city after this clip. And I think this can serve as a warning about the misuse of technology when it's driven by someone's personal gain, revenge, or political manipulation. Okay. Here we have a still shot of a scene in the first spaceship on Venus from the film, um, because the film also deals with the double-edged sword of nature, the nature of advanced technology. For example, here we see one of the crew members after falling through an old trap set after the Venusians have destroyed themselves through nuclear war with each other. Their defense technology is still active and operates without anyone controlling them. This creates a deadly problem for the crew, for the international crew, and once again suggests that technology can get out of hand. Okay. Both films also put a heavy thematic emphasis on dystopian and utopian society. For example, in Metropolis, the city is dystopian because of the rigid and stark contrast between the divided society where the rich elites live in luxury above ground while the workers truly suffer oppressed underground in factories. This class segregation is blatant exploitation and dehumanization, characteristics of a dystopia. In contrast, I would say that looking towards the future and Fredder's role as the new mediator represents the hope of tomorrow and a utopia in the making where society can hopefully live in harmony, where they focus on cooperation instead of oppression. In First Spaceship on Venus, on the other hand, the dystopia is represented by the planet Venus that is supposed to be seen as a more advanced civilization than Earth and possibly a precursor of what will happen to Earth if they continue on their path. They wipe themselves out with nuclear war, only leaving behind ruins. And it's a reflection on Cold War fears in hindsight. But the utopia represented in the film is seen here with the multiracial, uniform talent of the crew working together, which I think embodies the ideals of global cooperation and peace, working towards scientific progression, all in an attempt to avoid the same fate as those who faced on Venus. Here in this shot, we can see the multiracial crew, which I thought was cool. And then over here, we have like this wide body shot or wide shot of the camera where we can see a large majority of the crowd, what they're looking at in a good chunk of their bodies. Okay. Here we have another clip. Here I have highlighted costume. I'll talk on that in a second. See how they're all talking? There's no cuts or anything like that. Matching suits. Okay. So this scene comes from First Spaceship on Venus, where we can see most of the crew, not all of them are here, but most of them, are in the exact same uniform. And I think this is done intentionally. The matching outfits emphasize discipline, unity, and a focus on the team's overall mission for research and nothing else. The clothes also provide no visible sign of a hierarchy, once again reinforcing full cooperation from the crew. Additionally, we can notice how there are no cuts in this long scene, regardless of the immense amount of dialogue and action and interaction that's happening between the characters or crew. I think this is a nice example of a long shot being utilized to enhance the realism of this already absurd scene of them being in space. It builds suspense and helps the audience put together spatial awareness of the crew and the ship. In Metropolis, we can also see the workers in matching uniforms, but this time it's a little different. They're seen in these colorless, full-body jumpsuits that seem lifeless, and we also see them lined up symmetrically, marching in unison. I think this is done to show the reality of their circumstances and their lives, living on the poorer side of society. It's dehumanizing, and it shows off the labor of mechanization. It's a good use of mise en scène, though. So, in conclusion, I think both of these films end in positive ways because the takeaways were that technology needs to remain in check, and that humanity is stronger together than they are butting heads. If I had to choose a thematic word/saying to describe each of the films, it would be class struggle for Metropolis, filmed in 1927, and anti-nuclear warning for first spaceship on Venus, filmed in 1960. And here's the bibliography.